Hello and namaskar viewers, I am Sanjeev Pandya welcoming you to this week's episode of the Business Talk with AJ. The show is all about business and talk about business. That means every week we bring you certain business and AJ Kumar gives you in-depth of that business. What kind of business is that? What does it take to start that business? How do you maintain that business? What are the operational costs? How do you market that business? And what are the challenges for that business to succeed or to failure? That's what the show is all about, the Business Talk with AJ. The show is brought to you by Sai CPA Services, a full-fledged, completely professional accounting firm located in state of New Jersey with multiple locations. They can assist you with any tax matter, personal or corporate tax matter. If you are a small to mid to large business size owner, they can help you out. And also, they can help you with payroll, bookkeeping services, virtual CEO, virtual CFO. So basically, Sai CPA Services is one stop for your business and for your personal taxes needs. They can also advise you on investing money so that way you can save taxes at the end of the year, and the time is just now. Once you start reviewing now, then you can put money away in order to save taxes, because Sai CPA believes in doing taxes right. They can be reached at 908-380-6876 or visit their website saicpaservices.com. With that note, I'd like to welcome Mr. AJ Kumar of Sai CPA Services to this episode. So good to have you.
Thank you, Sanjeevji. Thank you for the kind introduction.
You're very welcome. And viewers, you must have heard non-profit entities, not-for-profit businesses. How do they work? Why they say non-profit? Why do they say not-for-profit? Do they really make profit? Or it is definitely not for profit? And if it's not for profit, then why do they do it? So let's find out more about non-profit and not-profit businesses. That's our topic of the day.
Absolutely, Sanjeevji. So today's discussion is all about non-profit organizations. Do they really make profit? Can they pay salaries? Can they charge more money to generate some profit? How do they cover the expenses? Is it all about donation? Is there a mission around it? What filings are needed? How do you start a non-for-profit company? How do you keep it compliant? What IRS wants from you when you have a non-for-profit company? So today's discussion is all about non-for-profit company.
Yes.
We'll start with the mission. A lot of non-for-profit company have a mission. You can have something that you want to improve the eyesight. You can have a religious non-for-profit. You can have a chamber of commerce. You can have a networking group. You can have veteran organization. You can have a political organization supporting a political candidate. So all these organizations are created with a mission in mind. Making profit is not one of the mission, is not there. But they have to make profit. When you are buying something for $1, you sell it for $2, it's allowed. You have to make profit in order to generate some money to support the mission. It's that you cannot be distributing the profit among the owners and or the trustees. That being said, these people, owners, trustees, board, they can have a payroll around it. So in a non-for-profit company, you can have a payroll, you can make profit, you can generate revenue, as long as that money is kept in the non-for-profit company and is used for the mission for which this non-for-profit company was created.
All right. So once you decide that this is going to be a non-profit organization, then you apply for the tax exempt status, right?
Absolutely.
It has to be tax exempt.
Absolutely. A non-for-profit company has multiple steps when it comes to starting the non-for-profit company. It's not just any other for-profit company where you do the federal registration, get the EIN number, do the state registration, do the tax and labor registration. It takes few more steps. At a high level, we divide all these steps into 3 different categories. So first category is starting the organization, which is very similar to starting any other business. You get the EIN. Of course, the EIN has to say it's a non-for-profit company. You get the state registration, which has to be in line with the non-for-profit charter. You do the tax and labor registration. If you want to have the payroll, if you are going to be selling, if you are going to have a laminate stand, accordingly, you do the tax and labor registration. So the first step in starting a non-for-profit company is to start the business, start the organization. Once the business is started, then we come to the tax exemption. part of it.
Okay.
Once the business is started, you have the EIN number, you have the bank account, you have the state registration. You take all this information, fill up an application. The application is called 1023 for a typical 501c3. I mean, there is 1024 for a different chapter, different charter. But there is an application that you have that IRS asks you to fill. You provide all the information, including the mission, what you want to do, how you want to do, how much revenue you expect. You submit 3 years projection with this application to IRS, and you get something called tax exemption. It could be 501c3, 501c4, 501c6, 501c9. Depending on the type of organization you are trying to start, you get which is called tax exemption, which essentially means you don't have to pay income tax. Not that you don't have to file, we want to clarify it. You still have to file the taxes. You do not have to pay income tax. That's the tax exemption mean. That's the second step. The third step in this process is called sales tax exemption, which is given by the state, depending on whichever state you are in. So when you are buying stuff for this non-for-profit company, you do not have to pay the sales tax to the vendor. This is called sales tax exemption, which is the third step in this whole process, which has to be done after the tax exemption is received by IRS. So again, at a high level, we have 3 steps when it comes to the non-for-profit startup. The first step is similar to starting any other business, meaning getting the federal registration, EIN, state registration, tax and labor registration. Second step is getting the tax exemption, so you don't have to pay the income tax. You still have to file, not pay. Third step is called the sales tax exemption, which comes from the state, not the federal level. So second step is at the federal level. Third step is at the state level. And once these 3 steps are completed, now you have a non-for-profit company. The whole
All
process.
right. So okay. So these are the 3 steps, very important steps to know for the non-profit companies. Now, even though it's a non-profit, but it still requires funding to start a business. What are the sources of funding for non-profit businesses?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. So when we talk about non-for-profit companies, typically people assume the company, the organization runs based on the donation, and donation is prime source of revenue, prime source of collection for a lot of non-for-profit companies, including the religious one, especially the religious one, the church, gurdwara, temples. Donation that we received is the primary source. But at the same time, they can also have something on sale. So all these non-for-profit companies are allowed to have, for example, a lemonade stand where they are selling, for example, the calendar. A lot of religious organizations, temples, churches, gurdwara, they will create their own annual calendar, and they will try to sell it for $4, $5 each, while the cost is $1. So they are making some money by selling a little bit stuff here and there, trinkets, some books. This is allowed, where you are allowed to make money, allowed to make profit. So if you think about it, a non-for-profit company is allowed to do business selling books, selling calendar, selling lemonade, and make profit on this business. That's another source of income. A lot of these organizations will have their annual fundraising event or a special event where they will invite the local business, local sources, and then they can put the booth, they can put some event around it, they can create a magazine. That's another source of funding for them. And a lot of times these non-for-profit companies go for a special fundraising event, or they go for another non-for-profit company. Let's say, for example, if you have Hare Krishna temple in New Jersey, you can go to the prime Hare Krishna temple in Haridwar in India and ask for the funding. That's also a non-for-profit company. So another source of funding for a non-for-profit company is to target other non-for-profit companies. A lot of corporations have their funding budget that needs to be given, that will be given to the non-for-profit companies. And a lot of these organizations, a lot of these corporations will put on their website that we have $100,000 of budget, and they have the process listed over there as how do you go about collecting money from these corporations. So there are several sources of funding when it comes to funding.
All right, understood. Now quickly, before we go into the break, we have a minute left here. How long does it take for someone to start non-profit organization?
Absolutely, very good question. So there are 3 steps. First step takes 3 to 5 days. So in 3 to 5 days, you can start a non-for-profit company and open the bank account start collecting the donation. You still have to disclose that you don't have the tax exemption yet. The second step takes 3 to 6 months. That's the main step, the tax exemption step. The third step takes about 30 days. So in total, you can say it takes 3 to 6 months, 4 to 7 months in order to get the complete setup done.
Okay, and right now we're just going to go into the break, but just want to let you know that if you are thinking about starting a non-profit organization, Science CPA Services can certainly help you out. You can contact them at 908-380-6876. With that note, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue to discuss more on this non-profit organization. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the second half of the Business Talk with AJ. Today's topic is non-profit organizations. For the regular viewers of this show, as you know that every week we talk about a certain business and give you as much details that you really need to know about the business from start to finish. And today AJ is letting us know about non-profit organizations. So we discussed majority of it, that how long does it take to start a business, what are the funding sources, and what's a non-profit organization. Now let's talk about the categories of the non-profit businesses.
Absolutely, Sanjeevji. So everybody knows 501c3. When you talk about non-for-profit company, the first thing comes in mind, 501c3, but very few people know there are other type of non-for-profit organization. Say for example 501c6. When we talk about C6, we are talking about Chamber of Commerce. So why is important? The money given to the Chamber of Commerce is not tax deductible donation. Only the money given to 501c3, religious, community, charitable organization, is what goes on your charitable contribution, what goes on charitable donation. If you are giving money to a club, Chamber of Commerce, or a political organization, that does not qualify as charitable contribution. So for example 501c1, not c3, c1 is typically for research organization. We are trying to we are researching on something, researching on a medicine. That's 501c1. So the funding in there can be classified as business expense, as a business asset, but it's typically not charitable contribution. C3, we talked about religious organization. C4 are typically political organization. You're supporting this candidate from BJP, Congress, Democrats, Republican. That's all C4. 501c6 is Chamber of Commerce. C9 is typically for veterans. VFW typically is your C9. So you have to know what type of organization you have, and then the tax treatment for the money that you are giving to that organization could be very different.
Okay, interesting. So these are the ones, but mostly I have seen 501c3
That's right. That's what the most common.
Is a very, very common one out there, especially for the religious and then the other one. All right. So then question comes to my mind is that what kind of tax filing requirements are for these non-profit organizations?
No, absolutely. So if your organization is defunct, not collecting money, or collecting less than $50,000, then you can file an easy postcard, single page, one pager, is called 990N. If your organization is collecting less than $200,000 and your assets are under $500,000, you can file 990 Easy, which is a shorter form. If it's more than 200,000 or more than $500,000 in the asset, then you have to file the proper 990 form, which is longer, and you do not want to do it yourself. You want somebody else to be doing it. If it's a private foundation, Bill Gates Foundation, or then you have the family members controlling the non-for-profit company, there is a separate form. Then you don't do the 990 Easy or 990 regular. Then you do 990 PF. PF stands for private foundation. So just remember, even if you're not collecting money in the non-for-profit company, even if you have no activity in the non-for-profit company, even if it's tax exempt, tax filing is mandatory. You must file the taxes at the end of the year. If you don't file the taxes for 3 years, the non-for-profit company will lose the non-for-profit tax exemption status, and you have to go back and redo the whole process.
When you say that non-profit entity can lose a status, that means there could be common mistakes. What are the common mistakes that you have seen when it comes to a non-profit organization?
No, absolutely. I'm glad you reminded me. There are several, and we'll keep it short. So the first mistake, people tend to assume I'm tax exempt, so I don't have to file the taxes. That's not true. Tax exempt only means you don't pay taxes. You still must file taxes. Second mistake, people tend to assume I have no activity. I don't even have the bank account. I don't have to file it. That's not how it works. If you have a non-for-profit company, you have an obligation. It's mandatory for you to file the taxes. Third mistake, a lot of people don't know that 501c3 is not everything. A lot of time when you're supporting a candidate, people say, I'm just supporting the candidate. I'll collect money and I'll give it to him. Give me 501c3. That's not 501c3 charter. A lot of time people create a business group. Accountant, attorney, insurance guy, everybody coming together will promote each other's business. Let's create a non-for-profit company. That's not C3, that's C6. So the common mistake here is not identifying the proper charter. The next mistake people make is the payroll mistake. People pay money to a lot of vendors. People pay money to board. You are collecting money for the chamber, for the temple, for the church. Will pay you this much money. That's not how it works. You have the right to do the payroll, but you just cannot pay it. If you're just paying money to somebody, it has to be a 1099. So you have to still follow all the business laws, business rules when it comes to non-for-profit companies. So W2 has to be there, 1099 has to be there. A lot of people make mistake by not having the insurance. It's like anything else. You have to be worrying about getting sued. If you are doing a lot of non-for-profit activities, make sure you keep the proper insurance around it.
So it's basically just like any other entity, any other for-profit entity, just built exactly like that. The only difference is this is non-profit organization.
That
means
organization.
They are tax exempt organization, but they do have to pay tax on the income, whatever that they
if there are outside business activities,
yes.
Let's say if, my charter is to support something. My charter is to support education. Now I started a grocery store. Even though I intend to use the profit from the grocery store for this mission only, I still have to pay taxes on the profit of the grocery store. So if you are doing some activity which is not part of your mission, which is not part of your application process when you got the 501c status, in that case we call it OBA, outside business activity. So in theory, you have a for-profit venture under a non-for-profit company. And that's another thing. A lot of people don't realize that you can have a for-profit company owned by a non-for-profit company. Except that on the for-profit activity, when you file the taxes for that entity, you have to pay the taxes.
Okay. Now, speaking of taxes, here's a question. For non-profit organizations, they have board of directors and they have trustees, and they may have one or more than one individual really doing daily activities in case if they are in a business of selling something, and it's like their job, right?
Yep.
So then if it's their job, obviously they must be paid.
Right.
So is it true that their salary can be deducted from the income?
Well, there is no income. It's more of collection, and salary is 100% allowed.
Right.
Consider an example. A temple, typical temple or church, has a board, trustees, money collect. They collect the money through the hundi, through the box and or donation. And then they have 1 or 2 or 3 priests who takes care of the temple, who takes care of the ground, and they have to be the payroll, like any other employee.
Right. Okay, so they can get paid.
Absolutely.
And then, it's not like they're working for free also, they can get paid.
No.
All right. So if somebody organizes, let's say, a religious event, all right, religious event, and they sell the tickets. They collect the revenue, and obviously expense must be paid for the auditorium and sound system and whatnot and everything. And whatever money is left over, can they take it as a salary or as a...
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
So it's selling anything else. If you are selling books, the temple is selling books. They buy the books for $1. They try to sell it for $5. The $4 of profit is the profit that the temple will use to further the mission. This money is invested into the same activities that you were approved for, and that's allowed. What we are talking about is the salaries are allowed. Paying money, if the temple is doing construction, these guys are not going to be working for free. You have to find a contractor. Money has to be paid to the contractor. Where is this money going to come from? It can come from donation, it can come from some profit that the temple is making. That's all allowed.
Okay, so while listening to you with all the details about non-profit organization, a question comes to my mind is, what is the difference between a non-profit organization and an NGO?
So the main difference between an NGO and a non-for-profit company, a non-for-profit company, the definitions that we gave, the compliance that we gave, the process that we gave is all for US-based company. How does this country works? NGO, non-government organization, are the non-for-profit company typically that works outside the US. They work outside the government influence. They have their mission. They are typically non-for-profit company, and they are serving other mission outside the United States, and that's how they are referred as NGO. They are serving the mission, serving what they are supposed to be serving, but they are not under the influence of any government.
Okay, and as we are just inching towards the closing time, are the non-profit organization can also be audited? Their tax return can also be audited by IRS?
Absolutely, all the time. Actually, more so than a for-profit company. Think about it. Somebody is giving the money to somebody else, and both of them are taking the tax benefit. The person who gave the money is deducting the money on their tax return. The person who got the money is not filing the taxes, is not paying any income tax. So government sees it as a double whammy. So a non-for-profit company is scrutinized more than a for-profit company. They have to file taxes, they have to maintain proper record, they have to issue certain statement of collection to everybody who gave them the money. So a non-for-profit company can definitely be audited. If you go for bank loans, let's say if you're trying to improve the temple or a church, or you're trying to create a new structure around it, you go to bank for the loan, they will ask for financial statements from you. So you have to maintain proper financials, proper bookkeeping is needed, payroll is needed, and definitely you have to, the audit risk, you have to know when you are part of a non-for-profit company, you are on the hook. As a trustee of a non-for-profit company, you can be held responsible for the problems that you have in the non-for-profit company.
Now the last question of the day, last question of the show. Companies like Salvation Army, Red Cross, are they non-profit organization, meaning they have so much of operating cost? Do they deduct the operating cost from the donation that they received and then still be not-for-profit?
Yes, and you are 100% right. So and the rules have been there forever, for years. So a Salvation Army, Red Cross Society, they had so much load. We call the SG&A, this collecting the person who is using the bell, they get 10%. The person who is collecting the money, they have a salary. The CEO has a salary. The salaries are for the CEO are $500,000
easily. Yeah.
So how do you make money? Where is the money going? How do you have any money left to do what you are supposed to be doing? That's why government has rules around it, that you cannot have more than 61% of the money going into
operating cost.
Load. For everything.
Okay.
Some portion of the money must be used for the purpose you collected the money for, just to avoid the misuse. So Salvation Army, Red Cross Society, they're all good organizations.
So $1 that you donate to them, 60 cents goes into operating costs and 40 cents goes into
roughly.
Right.
So there are the rules around it. But the best thing you can do, donate to the local organization. Donate to the organization where you know there are no salaries, there are no loads. There are a lot of good organizations.
Correct.
You find your own passion, vision, cows, animals, temple, religion. You find your own passion and find couple of non-for-profit companies in your area, and that's how you donate the money.
With that note, we come to an end of this week's episode, The Business Talk with AJ. We talked about non-profit organizations. AJ, thank you so very much for your time. And until we meet again, same place, same time, I'm Sanjeev Pandya, wishing you all happy and smiley days ahead. So long.
Thank you.